Hey everybody, how's it going today? Welcome to Ellensburg, Washington, USA. It's a beautiful day outside. I hope it's beautiful where you are. The local time is 12:46 p.m. and we will begin our program on the Leavenworth Fault and more at the top of the hour, less than 15 minutes from now at 1 o'clock local time. Thank you for joining us. Hope that you enjoyed today's session. I do have a rather specific plan today, so we'll see if I can make it happen. But a little less improv today, I guess, but we all know. We all know. So let's say hi to a few folks, make sure we're doing okay. We got Matthew, who has a severe case of senioritis at the moment. He just confessed to me. There is no cure. They're rushing to find a vaccine for senioritis, but we're running out of time, Matthew. So where are you viewing from? I'm sorry, I didn't even start looking yet. I'm sure you already typed your location in. Athens, Greece, Sonora, California, Selma, Oregon, Glasgow, Scotland, Moneta, Virginia, London, England, heard of it, Merrill, Wisconsin, Crescent City, California, Whatcom County, Washington, Germany, Jacksonville, Florida, Patrick, age 7, hello Patrick, York, UK, Westminster, Colorado, Longford, UK, Oh, we got a Logan sighting. Sonora, California, San Jose, California, Sequim, Washington, Yakima, Washington. Your midterm's probably right here, Logan, if you didn't grab it. I guess you weren't with us last time, were you? I saw you in the...
I just grabbed it, but I did join the live stream.
You did live stream. I saw that.
My dog was having some valve problems. So
okay, all right.
I figured I better not.
The Netherlands, Nash, Vegas, Seligman, Arizona, Victoria, BC. This is always fun to see where you are. Yarmouth, UK. Ariel the Princess is here. Does she have a sample? Did you bring a green rock today? All right. I'll bet you somebody did. I saw the photos on Instagram. You guys were down in the ditch. That's great. Andre from Portugal. Hello. Los Altos, California. Spokane, Washington. Melbourne, Australia. Melbourne. Port Charlotte, Florida. Kirkson, Sweden. Don's in Los Angeles, California. IG Conservante is Rio de Janeiro. Hello, Rio. South Africa. Hey, Leslie Ann. Tswani. I've been enjoying viewing your beautiful country on the Itchy Boots YouTube channel. It's been a thrill to see all of your beautiful country. Kenmore, Washington, Boeing plant. Scott Mad 1, are you working at Boeing this afternoon? Lakeland, Florida. Yeah, we don't have the usual suspects at this hour, but I suppose they'll roll in. But Emma's usually half an hour early. She's not here so far. Let's see. So it looks like we're doing okay. I'll stay out of your way. Stay out of the way of the students. Had a good hiking day with about half the group yesterday. Overcast. Flowers were amazing. Shot a bunch of video. I suppose I'll edit it this weekend, but we're limping right along. I think we need a bit of a break here. So we've been hitting it hard. So the students and I won't see each other again until Tuesday. And I guess I won't see you live until Tuesday either, but you'll see a video posted over the weekend from Ingalls Creek. And it's heavy on scenery, short on geology, but I don't know. We'll see. I got some footage. We'll see how it works. It is a beautiful time of the year, and sometimes I'm not sure I want to come when it's so beautiful outside, but we'll see how many we get today. I'm glad that you're here. Let's say hi to a few more. There's zero energy in the room because we only have 3 people sitting here, but it'll change. There's Emma. No new maps, Emma. Glenda's in the foothills of California. Joni is looking forward to the Ingalls Creek video. Thank you, Joni. Auckland, New Zealand. Hello, Martin. Grandpa Carl in the Granger Clay Pits. Sabres in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Maria's in Finland. Good evening, Maria. David's in Edinburgh, Scotland. Dino Chris is in Minnesota. Pat Miller, Yakima. Swansea, Wales. The Netherlands. June Lake, California. Northern Virginia. Vienna, Austria. Hello, Crown House. Nope, no Vinmans today. No treats. No new maps. No new handouts. Hello, Bryce. Hello, Mary. Did you bring any green rocks? Yeah, that looks like they had a good time. Ash, you bring one? Let's see it. Let me get a sample from Ashley, who followed my lead. Oh, there you go. Thank you. I'll bring it right back to you. So Ashley and some of the group, after we broke up on the trail, Ingalls Creek I'm talking about, at one point I said, the Ingalls ophiolite is not quite as spectacular here in Ingalls Creek as it is down along Peshastin Creek. So I think it was Colton that said, so why are we here? Why aren't we at the Green Rock? I'm like, well, because it's a beautiful hike, man. But anyway, so these guys, I gave them directions on where they can kind of duck into a ditch along Peshastin Creek, and Ashley brought in this one. I'm sure you have many more samples as well. Yeah, thank you. Be right back. So just the 2 of you guys ducked down there?
Megan, Colton, Hayden.
Good.
And Hayden.
Was it hard to find?
It wasn't hard to find, but it was a little hard to get down.
Get down.
Climbing down the boulders was.
Yeah.
I thought it was fun. The others
Yeah.
were like, this is tricky. I'm sorry.
And the water was cooking, right? So yeah. It's a wild place.
It was crazy though.
Yeah.
We were just all over the ground.
Right.
Just pick it up.
Right.
It's like, oh my God.
Like an outcrop too. Like we not our little scree slope, but it really banging right on the.
Giant boulders.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
Megan had like a humongous one.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Out of across this 3-lane highway.
Yeah.
You made it. Nothing new, Luke. All right, we got most everybody. We don't have the vocal leaders, however, so we'll see if they trickle in. There's a few tone setters that when we don't have them, it's a little different in the room. So there's a couple links down below, and they, especially the link that's right below, underneath the scientific papers link, is particularly helpful for number 2 here. And that is that interview on the fly that I did with Michael Eddy and Aaron Donaghy at Mission Ridge. And we're talking about that very spot today. So after this lecture, you might want to go right to that and flesh it out. There's 2 new scientific papers. My God, it's like a church in here. What's going on? Is this it today? Oh my God, are we going to have one of these days? Come on, we can do this. You're copying things down. Okay. Excuse me. Thank you for being here, students. I'll be with you momentarily. there's a couple science papers that these guys are not responsible to read, and if you're interested, they are there. One of them is a master's thesis that Erin Donaghy sent me after last time's class. And she said, here's all the gory details about what a master's thesis student at Northern Arizona University, Gunderson, I forget her first name, sorry. I barely had a chance to even glance at it. So there's lots of great stuff in the SWOC from that thesis that I will enjoy using. Oh boy, here we go, Tim. Tim's one of those vocal guys. And also there's a brand new paper that I saw posted on Twitter a couple nights ago by Rob Witter up in Alaska. And it's a long shot to include in this class, but he's been using some LIDAR and other kind of really interesting techniques to study the Fairweather Fault up in Alaska, which is a strike slip fault similar to the kind of fault that we're talking about. So I'll probably forget to even mention that paper today to the group, but it's there if you want to see a really sexy looking paper. Lots of colors, lots of imagery, lots of real youthful geology up there, and the Yakutat terrain still moving north, baby. Okay, I feel like I want to circle the room for just a couple of minutes, and we will begin at 1 p.m. Thank you for joining us. All right, bring it, bring it, bring it. Tim's bringing it. Matthew, maybe, maybe not. We'll see. I'm graduating. What do you expect? Oh, the Holy Trinity's here. You guys survived. You didn't dive into the water.
I mean, I dunked my head.
You did dunk your head? Was Emma filming that?
Yeah.
I just put my feet in the water.
Do you want to see?
Yeah.
I set up a little picnic, had my little bandana, little, area, sandwich Oreos.
Your picnic blanket was your bandana.
Shirt off, but
Bryce with his shirt off. Oh my God. He dunks in.
And then he screams.
And then he screams.
yeah, on the hike.
Let's hear the screaming. Where's the, turn the audio on.
Scream.
Then me laughing at
Oh my
But then I
God.
tripped on. You need to call her. Then I tripped on. Why? I was having fun.
Oh.
Playing off.
Kyle came all the way down to give you the business. He came down 4 rows. He had this one chambered and ready. I need a leash for Bryce.
I didn't run off yesterday.
No, you didn't. You were well behaved. Kyle, on the other hand. Oh, this is circling around. You weren't expecting this.
Well, I didn't dive in what?
That's a good point. That's a good point. Oh, you guys are wild cards.
I wanted to go in the water. It felt good.
I love your enthusiasm. What?
I'm not allowed to.
Yes. Funny joke.
Apparently I'm a blank slate. You're just telling me what
I'm a
to
blank
say.
slate. Wow. Alright. Because I'm not Mason or.
You can only listen to... I'm the blank slate. You're telling me what to say. You just heard blank slate and projected it on yourself. What is going on? And Matthew's in the wrong row. What is going on? That's senioritis right there. Trying to pump myself up, man. You take off your shoes. No, don't. Oh, Megan taking, and you have your wrist thing. You have your ankle. Did you tweak your ankle yesterday?
So I did something to my ankle about 2 months ago.
Oh,
And
and yet you've been hiking every week.
and I haven't gone to the doctor.
Doctors are overrated. What?
They're expensive.
They're expensive. They are expensive. Okay, I can feel it. I can feel it. Oh God, we got, oh boy. We got Hayden. Okay, nothing new, Hayden. Here we go. Welcome, one and all. I have both barrels ablazing today. I feel good about my plan for today. What's that? I have a plan. I have an actual plan. I have a 3-ring circus. I don't like circus, so I'm going to say this is a 3-act play. And I'm just declaring this to put pressure on myself. I solemnly swear that all 3 of these acts of this performance will transpire in the next 50 minutes. And I will make sure that I stick the landing and we get to what's going on here. So the title is Leavenworth Fault, but we have more on the docket than the Leavenworth Fault. Good energy because I'm trying to just load it on my shoulders here. I'll involve your comments, your questions, your ideas, but it's really me trying to do the heavy lifting, and I'm not going to see you again until Tuesday. We don't have a field trip tomorrow. We don't have a field trip, whatever. So let's really kind of earn our weekend here with this weather that's supposed to be, what, mid-80s or something this weekend? Can't wait. Going to enjoy being out there. Hope you're out there too. Still stalling for you. And so when we finished last time, we were talking about the SWOC formation, and I was running out of time, of course. That was Tuesday. That was so Tuesday of me to run out of time, not Thursday. But the Straight Creek Fault is what I threw in right at the end, and that's where I want to start here today. You've got the outline now, it's going away. Okay, Straight Creek Fault. Well, actually, let me stick with this for a second. So piercing points, we need to define what those are. Some of you know. Piercing points for the Straight Creek Fault. Piercing points for the San Andreas Fault in California. Piercing points for Aaron Donaghy's Leavenworth Fault. She didn't invent the Leavenworth Fault, but she most recently has worked on the Leavenworth Fault, and the Chumstick Formation is going to be all Aaron Donaghy all the time next week. So we transitioned to Aaron's world, and she helped me last night, and I'll explain on that in just a second, even though she lives in Indiana. And then again, what I want to get to is finally sharing the field evidence for Mike Eddy being against the grain and saying that the triple junction is migrating south during this 60 to 40 million year time instead of north. What evidence does he have that's so convincing that he is against the grain? We're going to talk about it today. I'm still kind of distracted. People are rolling in leisurely, minutes after the beginning of the lecture. Okay, so we begin then with a reminder. As quickly as I can, I want to add a couple of final thoughts that I didn't quite get to last time. Not going to fall behind, not going to fall behind, boy, not going to fall behind. Of course we've been confined here. The SWOC formation. Tim, the Chuckanet formation. Combining these two guys together, that is the SWOC basin, the SWOC sandbox, 59 to 49 million years ago. Yes, it's folded. Yes, it's folded due to the aftermath. Got rid of circus. To the aftermath of our Siletzia accretion. So rewritten for you, a little bit more tidy. Yes, the SWOC folds because of the accretion of Siletzia. The dikes open up, the coin purse of the Teanaway. The rivers reverse their flow. Oh my God, the home viewers were just like mind blown. How do you change the direction a river's flowing? That's all they wanted to talk about when you guys left, after I kicked you out of the room. And some of it was very specific and very kind of thought-provoking. So I don't know how much more I'm going to do with that, but that was, I don't know if it resonated with you, but with those guys, they were like, what the hell are you talking about? And then today, strike-slip faults, that's also beginning. It's a direct aftermath of the accretion of Siletzia. Not only, I'll get to it, right? Not only the Straight Creek Fault, but the Leavenworth Fault, beginning in the neighborhood of 50 million years ago. Okay, a couple of loose ends from this time. Do you realize the thickness of the SWOC formation? It was buried in the Eddy paper that you're responsible for reading. He said it more than once. I'm not going to go fish for it because I want to stay on task. Good news for you. I want to stay on task. I'm not going to come fishing for all sorts of stuff from you. 8,000 meters for the estimated thickness of the sandbox? Wait a minute, 8,000 meters? That's 24,000 feet. That's more than 4 miles. Shit, I was talking about the Columbia River basalts. 3 miles thick in the middle. This thing's thicker, apparently. Now, if you watch the videos that are linked down below in replay, you'll see the Aaron Donaghy and Mike Eddy visit, and that will pertain to number 2, the Leavenworth Fault discussion. But also linked down below is going out in the field with Ralph Hagerud. And one of Ralph's main points about the SWOC is, I don't think we can restore the SWOC formation easily. I don't think we can take all those folds and all these faults we're going to be talking about today. I don't think we can easily get those layers back to their original flat position. So therefore, I think it's still, this is Ralph talking, I think it's still a bit of a debate about how thick this walk really is. But I can't hold it. The chum stick's just as thick. There's 4 miles in the literature. There's 4 miles of swak. And next week, when we talk about the chum stick, which is younger, that's another sandbox with another 4 miles of sand. How do you even make the space for that? Don't expect an answer, just trying to get you rolling. Okay. I want to say one last thing, and that is, just as a way of kind of cleaning up ideas from last time. This is all from last time. I didn't erase. Feeling good today. Hope you are too. So here's our 8,000 meters of swak. Can I use the word disruption, which I meant to use last time and did not? There was a major disruption in the accumulation of the swak basin sediment. And again, you're keeping a list of things on the back burner. We have to wait at least a week before we get to the magmas from this window. So we're not doing those at the same time. Remember the game plan? Even all of next week will be sandstones and faults and folds. No magmas until the following week. So put this on the back burner, the Silver Pass volcanics, but this is happening during this significant disruption. And I like that word. And Mike used it more than once in his paper. Disruption, hell yes, man. We got the rivers coming that are flowing west, and then suddenly they're flowing east, timed with the accretion of Silesia. Last tidying up. I did read a detailed master's thesis on the swak since last time. Erin Donaghy sent it to me. She watched us live, and then she said, here you go. You had some questions about what's in the swak, right? In fact, a bunch of the home viewers, I'm getting carried away, a bunch of the home viewers like, is this a bunch of Silesia basalt then? Like if you're docking Silesia at 51 and you disrupt the river system, are we truly just bringing grains of crescent basalt or Silesia basalt? And is basically the upper part of the swak sandbox nothing but basalt? And I haven't read that master's thesis carefully enough yet. I don't think so, though. The main theme I think that I learned so far from this Gunderson master's thesis, it's also in the scientific papers. It doesn't have a star, but if you, for whatever reason, are wanting to get into it, it's all there. I need to backtrack just a touch. According to this thesis, Gunderson, the highlands, or the source, Ariel, the source of these west-flowing sands, or west-flowing river, is not as far east as the Rockies. So I got to scale back my story. Remember, I was casually saying half a state away. Apparently, by looking at the provenance, meaning the original bedrock where the sand is coming from, is more like the Swakane biotite gneiss, a little bit further to the east. I mean, it's stuff that was probably buried by Columbia River basalts, but it's coming from eastern. The highlands are eastern Washington, as opposed to east, Montana, as I was saying. And likewise, and again, I'm early in reading that thesis. This is probably not Silesia sand. This is more likely Mount Stewart. So disappointing maybe for me to scale back, but I feel better just confessing to you that reading that thesis at least briefly, we definitely have a reversal. We definitely time it. We definitely have the disruption. That's exciting as hell. Sorry, Patrick. But the rivers aren't flowing quite as, they don't have quite the length that I thought that they did on Tuesday. Okay, I feel good. Let's move on to the plan today. Piercing points. What is a piercing point? Can somebody put it into words? We're spitballing together. Anybody know that phrase? It's with strike slip faulting. Go ahead, Rachel.
I'll try.
Is
Yeah.
it like the 2 points on a unit where you can match them together to see like the original placement?
Beautifully done, exactly right. Let me repeat for everybody. We know there are different kinds of faults. From Geology 101, you extend the crust, you make a normal fault. The hanging wall goes down. This is quick. You've all heard it a million times. Crustal compression, you squeeze the blocks and you have the hanging wall go up. That's not what we're talking about either. Today is nothing but strike-slip faults. Oh, really? Give me an example. Straight Creek Fault. Oh, really? Give me another example. Leavenworth Fault. Okay, give me another example. Antioch Fault. They're on your map from last time. There's plain as day. A freaking razor blade coming right down the map. They're just as linear as the day they were when they were made, when they were active. And so if I'm not doing hanging wall up or hanging wall down, what am I doing? Well, I have to go to an aerial view. No pun intended. I have to go an aerial view to see the offset of a strike-slip fault. So my question was, what is a piercing point? And I'll try to do it on a board, but we have to look down from above. We have to look down from heaven. This is a map of Washington. Let me make up a fault. Don't write it down. It doesn't exist, okay? I'm just using this blank whiteboard here. Oh, this is a chalkboard. I'm using this blank chalkboard. Okay? We have a fence. A rancher built a fence. Happened to build it right across this strike-slip fault. Oh, shit, there's an earthquake. Okay, I got to clean up my language, okay? My mouth wasn't working that well last time, and so I tried to wake up my mouth by using profanity. I got no excuse today, so no more swearing today. Sure we are. We're placing bets. Major earthquake on this strike-slip fault. We're looking down from heaven. We broke that fence cleanly along this strike-slip fault. We can measure the offset. We can measure the offset of the strike-slip fault by doing what? By taking a tape measure and measuring between these 2 points. Those are the piercing points. In other words, the fence used to be together. The fence has been moved X number of meters or feet, whatever you like. We lay down a tape measure. We measure the distance between the 2 piercing points, and we're good. We measure the offset of one earthquake. If there are multiple earthquakes, again, please don't write these down as far as where we are in Washington. I'm just using a chalkboard. Maybe we have 5 earthquakes. Each time they produce this amount of offset. Maybe this is 20 feet. That's a number that I always use, like for the San Andreas Fault. Big earthquake on the San Andreas Fault, 20 feet on average. 20 feet of sudden, abrupt movement of one side of the fault versus the other. So, my God, was this a huge mega earthquake? No. There's ways to figure out how many times we shifted the west side of the fault versus the east side of the fault. But the piercing points are still where we can restore the original thing that used to cross the fault before the fault even existed. We need those 2 points that used to be touching, and they no longer are. You've got it now if you didn't have it before. Now, both of these faults are showing us offset, but are these faults right lateral or left lateral offset faults? Right lateral. How can we put that into words? How can you tell yourself? How can you figure out that you're correct? It's right lateral. Megan?
Okay, so I was taught that if you're walking up a point.
I'm with you so far. If you're walking and you turn.
Left or right.
Yep.
It tells you if it's right or left.
I like it too. So here we go. Okay, this is you or this is me, Megan. It can be anybody. It can be Luke. You got a bad ankle? Okay, this is you. Okay? Luke wants to add something. Kind of the same thing, yeah. So the rule is this. We want to decide if this is right lateral or left lateral. Here's you. Follow the fence. Walk towards the fault. Again, the fence can be, as you'll see in a second, a big blob of granite, can be a sandstone bed, can be a volcanic tuff, anything, right? Something that we can follow. Follow it. Walk it, come towards the fault. Oh, shit, it's gone. Sorry, Patrick. Pay up. Oh gosh darn it, gee willikers, I can't find this thing anymore. I have to look right to find a continuation of it. Same here. Walk towards the fault. I've lost it. Where can I find it again? I have to look right. And you're like, hold on. What if you do this? Same thing. Okay? Right lateral. So what does left lateral look like? Looks like that. Walking towards the fault, have to look left to find the continuation. Let's not get it twisted. All of our strike-slip faults are right lateral in Washington. And the San Andreas Fault in California is right lateral. Let me show you. Here's the most famous strike-slip fault in the world, I would guess. We have worldwide viewers, but maybe even the international audience would agree. California has the strike-slip fault that's most well known, the San Andreas Fault. So here's what the state of California looks like today. If we restore the San Andreas Fault, this pink is the Sierra Nevada granite, the Sierra Nevada batholith. And I always say 20 million years ago is the birth of the San Andreas Fault in my teaching. Now, I did see that Aaron, are you with us right now? I saw that Aaron live last time, I think she said 29. And if that's true, I need to learn a little bit more on that, Aaron. And she's up on all this for sure. So let's use my number for now until I learn the details about 29. So 20 million years ago, there was no San Andreas Fault. Gosh. And the San Andreas, then the Sierra Nevada granite was all one big kielbasa. Okay? Then we start making earthquakes, 20 feet at a time, 20 feet at a time. Oh shit, man, this is right lateral. And we have a total of roughly 200 miles of offset in total along the San Andreas Fault in the last 20 million years. 200 miles over the last 20 million years. And of course, it's still active. Now, we have no evidence that the entire San Andreas Fault ruptures at once, but we know from 1906 that the San Francisco earthquake was a good length, a scary length, from south of San Francisco all the way up to Cape Mendocino, rupturing at one time. So when these strike-slip faults are active, they are big earthquake producers. That's in California. Did the San Andreas Fault exist earlier than 30 million years ago? No. Did the San Andreas Fault exist during our magic time window? No, let's not get it wrong there. Please. The San Andreas Fault was not active, was not even a beginning of a glimmering San Andreas Fault mother's eye. God, I struggle with that. Why even go that far, but not committed to it? Okay, you know what I mean. Okay. So the Straight Creek Fault, and I did this quickly last time, but I want to give you piercing points now. The Straight Creek Fault in Washington, look at how perfectly straight this thing is. And I got landmarks for you. This is Easton, Washington. This is I-90, this red line. There's Snoqualmie Pass right there. And here's this thing in the bedrock going all the way through to British Columbia. Fraser Fault in BC, Straight Creek Fault in Washington, same thing. Right lateral. Anybody have the dates that I gave you very quickly last time? First of all, is the Straight Creek Fault still active? It is not. We don't have to worry. The San Andreas Fault in California is active. We're nervous about it. We are not nervous about the Straight Creek Fault. It's been dead for how many million years? Nobody's got it? 35. I said it quickly. You were probably grabbing your backpack when I said it last time. So the Straight Creek Fault began to make earthquakes how many million of years ago? 50. It's aftermath, baby. The Straight Creek Fault is a direct result of this accretion. And the ending date is 35. So let me restore the Straight Creek Fault for you, just like I restored the San Andreas Fault for you. Here we go. I'm out of hands, but can you see this big fat thrust fault here with the big black sawtooth triangles on it? That's my pinky is pointing to it right now. This is the windy past thrust near Leavenworth, going right through the Stewart Range. And here is that same thrust fault that's now in Canada. But it was once upon a time here. So one piercing point for the Straight Creek Fault is the windy past thrust fault. I know it's kind of confusing that instead of using a fence, instead of using a blob of granite, that one piercing point for the Straight Creek Fault is a different fault. It's this windy past thrust. The Canadian side is called the Vedder thrust, like Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam. But you can see, I hope, from the colors here that there are many other exotic terrains. The yellow, the pink, the gray, those are all exotic terrain bedrock units that have also been broken between 50 and 35 on the Straight Creek Fault. So we could use each of those as well. We could use the Ross Lake Fault and the Koik, however you pronounce it. Let's not get carried away. It's not the main focus today. But it is in our time window. 50 to 35 is in our time window, and we are producing, I always say, 100 miles of total offset on the Straight Creek Fault. If we want to keep it with kilometers, 130, 140 kilometers of total offset of the Straight Creek Fault. What's an obvious question? Can you play this game? What's a question that about 7 people asked after the lecture yesterday? When I say that the Straight Creek Fault was active between 50 and 35 million years. Nobody? Ryan.
If it's beginning the Straight Creek Fault as a result of the accretion of Celestia, why does the fault keep moving after the accretion ends?
I think you were going there, but I'm going to hit it right on the head. Why isn't it still active? What's special about 35 million years ago? Why did this thing stop making earthquakes? Why has it been a dead fault for 35 frickin' million years? I'm pointing to the third act. We're going to get there. But I got to pick up the pace, as usual. Okay? We're done with Act 1. Straight Creek Fault. No, we're not. No, we're not. We can also use Mount Stewart granite itself. So this is a terribly colored map. Ugly pastel colors, if you ask me. But I did it on purpose because the green is the Ingalls. That's where many of us were yesterday. The beautiful green rocks of the Ingalls exotic terrain. And this, what is this? Magenta, purple, let's just call it purple. This deep purple, this weird blobby thing, is the Mount Stewart Pluton, batholith, granite. We saw a bunch of it on the trail between, well, let's just make it simple, 93 million year old granite. Well, guess what? There's some of that up in BC with a clean break between the two. There's some Mount Stewart granite up in BC. I forgot to look up the name. I forgot to refresh my memory. It's either called the Spuzzy or the Scuzzy Pluton. Can't remember. Live chat with people will tell us, I'm sure. Spuzzy or Scuzzy, your pick. So if we want to pick a precise piercing point, I guess we would go like what? The southern tip of this Scuzzy Pluton matches the southern tip of the Mount Stewart batholith, which is pretty much right where we were yesterday. You got it. And you measure offsets between the two. Okay, that's all to set up the main message of today. and fault that's real. And what's it called? It's called the Leavenworth Fault. So you have, not only with the Mike Eddy paper and the Mike Eddy map that's from last time, if you can get that in front of your face, or more handouts coming from Aaron Donaghy next week. This Leavenworth Fault is a big deal. So let me do this quickly. This is totally a sketch now. Here's Ellensburg. Here's Lake Chelan. We know the rest. And let me not screw around. Let me get right to it. The Leavenworth Fault is oriented like this. And it crosses US 97 pretty much right there at the Rock Cafe or whatever that place. Did anybody stop there? Yeah, okay. Sandwich and coffee place. That was where we turned off to Ingalls Creek, right? So just north of there, basically right there at the Rock Cafe. That's what I'll call it. I don't even know the official name. The Rock Roadhouse? I don't know what it is. The Rock House, thank you. The Rock House is pretty much where the Leavenworth Fault is angling through US 97. I don't want to clutter up my map, but we could put US 97 right over. So you've been driving over the Leavenworth Fault every time you've gone over Blewett, you've dropped down, and you went to Peshastin, you went to Hayes Canyon or wherever. Okay? So we need piercing points, don't we? If we want to try to decide if this is right lateral or left lateral, well, heck, I already told you, all these faults are right lateral, so I already took the drama out of that. But what are the piercing points that Aaron Donaghy has and Mike Eddy has from today's paper? He's even got a couple of photos. I might fish. I don't know. I might fish for just a second. I got my eye on the clock. Is anybody razor sharp with this Mike Eddy paper from 2017, including the field guide? I'll give you a hint. He even has one of the stops. I mean, you know what we're doing. You're still technically responsible for this paper today. This is from the GSA field trip guide. This is the 2017 Eddy paper, not only with great diagrams, great text, great maps, but also the field stops. It's got a 3-day field trip. And I think it was on day 2, they made sure to stop a few times at the Leavenworth Fault. Now, what was I asking you? I guess what was the, piercing points, piercing points. Tim's going to try. Is it the Tumwater Mountain MRB? MBR? So there is detail in the Chumstick Formation. Again, that's next week. But it is something to do with one of the members of the Chumstick Formation called the Tumwater Mountain member. Who wants to add to this? I'll just fish a little bit more. Is there a photo of this? Is there any concept that you grabbed? And if not, I'll just go for it here. Did anybody see the video of me visiting with Mike and Aaron? That was at this Tumwater MB member. No. Okay. So let me say we do have, let me do this. We do have piercing points. And they're new. I mean, no other geologist has found these piercing points to my understanding. And I'll give you the result first of all before we talk about what the piercing points actually are. 30 kilometers of total offset, right lateral on the Leavenworth Fault. So based on our homework that we just did down in California, or the San Andreas Fault, we know that we're going to have something that looks like this. So something kind of pretty close to Ellensburg, just north of Ellensburg. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Sorry. Tim did a nonverbal cue there. He went. Thank you, Tim. We're going to somehow use something on either side of this Leavenworth Fault And between these two piercing points, we're going to have 30 kilometers of total offset. Not every earthquake, but total offset of 30 kilometers. You're like, oh, that's disappointing. I thought you just said there's 200 miles or whatever I said for the San Andreas Fault. Yeah, it's not as much. But there's the Eniot Fault. There's a number of other parallel strike-slip faults that also have right lateral offset. And so this is going to add up in a hurry. Don't lose sight of one of the main points, however. This is all the result of the accretion of Silesia. And if you haven't seen the connection yet, Act 3 is looking at these strike-slip faults is going to be the main evidence that Mike Eddy has that our triple junction needs to be drifting south during this time. And I don't expect anybody to see that yet. But if that's Act 3, I must be using the strike-slip fault somehow, and that is his main evidence that everyone else is ignoring. Okay, so I kind of regretted filling that chalkboard up with all that. Let me get rid of everybody else. Did anybody want to ask anything there? Matthew?
How much does the trend of these faults change due to the clockwise rotation?
Thank you, Matthew. Not much.
Okay.
Matthew wonders about clockwise rotation and how much the clockwise rotation since the accretion of Silesia has rotated our faults. Once we get into Western Washington, it's a major player, but this far inland, I don't think much, if at all. Thank you, though. So what is the geology to prove that this Leavenworth Fault has had 30 kilometers of offset? It's not a fence. It's not a blob of granite. It's a sedimentary thing. And now here's where I'm going to struggle. So I was mowing the lawn. I sketched out today's outline. Had a couple ideas for today's lecture, the 3-act play, and then I started mowing the lawn, started thinking about the Leavenworth Fault as I'm mowing the lawn. And then I stopped the lawnmower and I went to my cell phone and I texted Aaron. And I said, I'm having trouble. I can't, you saw me struggle even draw this here. I was like, I have a hard time drawing simply what you have presented in your paper. And so I gave her this sketch. It's not worth it. And she just, in Indiana, sketched out a couple of things on some lined paper and said, here you go. Here's what you need to do. So I want to do it cartoonishly from Aaron's help via Instagram, direct message. And then I'll flesh this out and we'll do much more about the chumstick next week. So I'm going to erase these lines. And instead, the piercing points that we have is the Mount Stewart granite. Oh, this looks promising. This is just what you did in California. It's just what you did with the Straight Creek. You used offset Straight Creek fault. I'm listening. Aren't you just going to have a bunch more Stewart granite on the other side over here? No. What she has on the other side, I'm still listening. This looks like the other half of the batholith. It's not. Uh-oh, it's dots. And each dot, this isn't a sandbox. Each dot is a boulder. It's not even appropriate to call it a conglomerate, but I'm ahead of myself. She has an amazing alluvial fan on this side of the Leavenworth Fault that's made out of boulders. We all know what an alluvial fan is. We have a narrow stream like yesterday's Ingalls, narrow stream in a narrow canyon, big boulders being tumbled ass over tea kettle down that narrow stream. And then you're going to make a big alluvial fan. You're going to make a big pile of those boulders if you can get out of your narrow canyon and get into an open basin somehow. Are you with me? That's in general what an alluvial fan is, Geology 101 content. This is a little bit different in that we had the source of this alluvial fan being granite of the Mount Stewart batholith. Shit, I'll read you the text. Aaron, I hope you're okay with that. This is me. Aaron, I just finished mowing the lawn. My plan for tomorrow is a live stream on Leavenworth Fault. I'm having a hard time with the sketch. Is the Fanglomerate totally on the Chumstick Formation side of the fault, or should I show the fan chopped by the fault? Aaron, I'm on my way home. I since learned she's on her way home from the Zircon lab. She's busting up the Blue Mountain unit like yesterday afternoon, separating out some zircons. I mean, this is about as fresh as you get, man. I'm on my way home, but I'll sketch something as soon as I get home. The Fanglomerates are all on the Chumstick side, so you should basically show the alluvial fan totally on the Leavenworth Fault side. And I think maybe everybody's still confused. Why would we have granite on one side and alluvial fan on the other? Well, the idea is we do have a little broken stream. We do have a broken, narrow stream valley that is taking our Mount Stewart granite and dumping it in these huge bowling balls or bigger into this alluvial fan. But they've been beheaded or severed. Now, let me get to the part that I wanted to read you. If you haven't figured it out yet, this is the Mission Ridge area just above Wenatchee, the ski place. Please watch that video. The link is right below this replay. You'll see it. We're looking at it. I hadn't heard. Remember my embarrassment last time? I'm talking to Mike and Aaron last summer, and they're like, well, obviously the Leavenworth Fault. I'm like, slow down. What's the Leavenworth Fault? And they're like, you got to be fucking kidding me. Mike didn't say that, but he's like, whoa, you live right over there, and you don't even honestly, so embarrassing. So we've offset this by 30 kilometers. There's way more involved, but I do want to read her second text. Next text from Aaron. The Fanglomerates that are in Mission Ridge are composed of 99% granitic clasts that match the age of the Mount Stewart batholith. You saw when we met in the field the size of the boulders and the larger than boulder clasts and how angular they were. They could not have been transported far from their source. So when they were deposited, they were likely deposited when the Mount Stewart batholith was positioned across the Fanglomerates. That's what she's like, an alluvial fan, conglomerate, kind of combining those two terms. She's not the first doing that. That is a phrase, Fanglomerates. And since we've offset by 30 kilometers, I can't hold it. There's not just one fan. There's a whole bunch of fans. Audible reaction from somebody. Thank you for that. These fans, I'm going to screw it up. These fans get younger. They have to get younger, right? So we got a bunch of fans that are like carbon copy, not to date myself, carbon copies of each other. Big fan of Stewart granite, big fan of Stewart granite, big fan of Stewart granite. I'm a big fan of Mount Stewart. Now, a Fanglomerate. But the point is, oh God, I wasn't prepared to use this analogy, and I don't know if I should. I thought I was going to be well behaved today. Yeah. It's like a choo-choo train. How about this? It's like coal cars. Can you picture a train's got a bunch of 6 empty coal cars? Open, right? Convertibles. And you've got a fixed chute. And all the coal is sitting in the bin. And we're going to fill these coal cars one at a time. Here's the fixed chute. Okay. We're moving the fix. Yeah, we're moving the chute, right? God, I got to work this out. So embarrassing to do this in real time when everybody in the room, including 1,000 people watching, can see what, and I can't see it. Right. We've got a shooting coal. And we've got our, this is interesting. So we've got our train cars, our coal cars open, but the train's parked. We're going to fill all the coal cars. Ready? Start loading the coal down the chute. Fill the car. Fill the car. Fill the car. Oh, Daddy likes it. Fill the car. Fill the car. It's a weird piercing point discussion. We're not just matching bedrocks. We're not matching faults. We're not matching fences like that ever exists. We're matching source in a steep canyon with an alluvial fan that was created when that steep canyon was directly south-ish, southwest of the fan. I finally see it. Temporarily. Rachel, you want to add something?
Well, I was curious if, because Mount Stewart was Baja, BC, yeah? Question mark?
Oh, yeah, but...
So how would you be able to follow some of the Fanglomers on the old fault when it came out?
Oh, my God. Wow, what a question. Rachel says, but Mount Stewart, I'm not going to get to Act 3. I'm going to do this quick and then I move on. Great question from Rachel. She says, well, isn't Mount Stewart the centerpiece of Baja, BC? Yes. Didn't Baja, BC used to be in Mexico? Yes. Can't you look for coal cars from an older time that young as you go north? Yes, if you had crazy amounts of exposure and you could, So hypothetically, yes, great thinking, but I doubt we have the exposures that we have here. We need the exposures among many other things. And that's maybe one way to say why this is so cool. I can't hold it. What's right here? The cake. This whole thing, this whole beautiful Leavenworth Fault, the coal cars getting older as you go this way, they disappear. The Leavenworth Fault has to be longer. There has to be more offset. We'll never find it. Well, can't you drill millions of dollars for every hole? Cool. Okay, I do want to finish what I started. What's Act 3? I'll try it here. Yep. So let me get, you're starting to, I almost want to ask if people can see it, but I guess I won't. I'm going to do it quickly. 5 minutes. Here we go. You ready? Verbally. Northeast, southwest, triple junction. It's been a while since we thought about it. We know that is intersecting and subducting beneath the Pacific Northwest somewhere, somehow, some whatever, and there's debate. You remember the debate? Everybody, and I mean everybody, except one person likes, let's just stay in our time window, likes the spreading ridge, which we will be very passionate about 2 weeks from now. The spreading ridge diving beneath California 60 million years ago, Oregon 55 million years ago, Washington 50 million years ago, BC 40 million years ago. What did I just show you? I showed you a triple junction. There's the triple junction, right? We have Kula plate, Farallon plate, right? North American plate. Everybody except Mike Eddy says 60, 55, 50, 45, 40. A northward migrating triple junction. Mike Eddy says no. Mike Eddy says northeast, southwest spreading ridge, fine. 60, 55, 50, 45. And then I think he says 40, 35, 30. In other words, he has a temporary, short-lived, southward migrating guy, and then it does go ahead and goes back north. This is crucial to many discussions involving Pacific Northwest geology. If you're sick and tired of spreading ridges and triple junctions, I'm sorry. It's a big deal. And we haven't even talked about magmas yet. So what evidence does Mike Eddy use to say that we have to be doing a southward migrating triple junction? Rachel wants to, let me, go ahead.
I was gonna say that near trench magma is yummy.
But we're not doing magmas yet. I love it, and Rachel wants to do magmas so bad. You did this on Tuesday too. It hurts to stay away from the magmas. But we're sandbox all the time, today and next week. I love it, but we're holding you off. What's the topic today? What are those? Strike slip faults. They're all right lateral. Oh my God. Here's what Mike says. Mike says basically, look, he doesn't say it like this, but I'll say it for him. Have you guys been out to the field? Have you guys actually looked or mapped in central Washington? Have you figured out the age window of when these strike slip faults, which are all right lateral, are active? It's between 50 and 35. It's not just Leavenworth. It's the Leavenworth fault, the Straight Creek fault. He says to do that, to have these strike slip faults active, Daddy's excited, you need the Kula plate offshore. What are you guys doing with this spreading ridge way the hell up here at the time that these strike slip faults are active? If the spreading ridge is up this high, you've got a Farallon plate obliquely coming at North America, and it's impossible to have these kinds of motions. What we're doing here in the last few minutes of today is what is obvious to many, but not enough, I guess. What's the obvious thing? You need an ocean plate heading north at the same time that you are driving right lateral strike slip behavior. Like what? The San Andreas Fault. My voice is changing suddenly. The San Andreas Fault has what? I don't have to draw it. The Pacific plate going northwest. If we had a different ocean plate offshore of California today going a different direction, we wouldn't have right lateral offset on the San Andreas Fault. And Mike says, I get the Baja BC thing, I get all that. I get the near trench magmas that Rachel wants to talk about, and we will talk about. But Mike says, can we please look at these strike slip faults and the time window that they are active, and can we all agree that's a thing? I'm going to write it, 50 to 35, active right lateral offset. We need the Kula plate offshore during this time. And to have the Kula plate offshore, we need the triple junction further south. So I'll answer my own question that we started with. Why did the Straight Creek Fault stop making earthquakes 35 million years ago? We didn't have the Kula plate offshore anymore. It's as simple as that. And then you go, well, if it's so simple, then why? And it's like, well, that's actually a hard one for me to visualize. Because this is still kind of a more minority opinion. I'm going to say it one more time, and then we'll quit. I don't even know if I want to stress the southward migration necessarily. Because if I'm totally honest with you, I'm not still totally sure that I see why Mike wants it drifting south. But the part that I do totally get, pretty sure, and Mike watches these, so I'll probably hear from him over the weekend. I think what I do have from him is we need this triple junction south of Washington. Can we say it that way? Or at least, I don't know, south of the mouth of the Columbia or something? I don't know. At the mouth of the Columbia? We need that cooler. You've got it now. I've said it 3 times. And it's just very difficult to come up with a mechanism to get this right lateral offset on all these smaller strike slip faults if you have the Farallon plate coming at you. That's really what most of these other models are saying. I know some of you want to ask questions, and that's great, but I think I'm going to dismiss all of us, and then let's talk one-on-one before I talk to the home crowd. I got there. It was kind of roundabout, but we got there, and I hope it feels satisfying to you. If it doesn't, you know how these things go. We'll pick right up on Tuesday, and we'll just, here's what I learned over the weekend. And we'll flesh this out, and I'll do my coal car routine once again with a moving chute that's actually fixed but should be moving and everything else. Bryce, what? Haven't even thought about next week. I'll do my normal Sunday night email. Probably will have Aaron Donaghy's chumstick paper that came out just a few months ago. So I'll put you on alert. I'm also, now that thanks for that, Bryce. I'm also going to send my last homework to you. You don't want it, but before we get to the end of the quarter and everybody's totally fried and overwhelmed, I need to do one more emailed homework assignment to you. I'll send that tonight. I'll give you a full week to do that. Thank you. I love you. Have a good weekend. I'm not going to see you till Tuesday. I'm going to cry big old tears. I don't know what I'm going to do without you. Goodbye. Hang on just a sec if you would. I'm going to talk. Rachel's got that arm up like a boss. All right.
Okay, I have a question about the fault orientation
Yeah.
and the spreading ridge orientation.
Okay.
If the faults are formed due to the northward movement of the Kula plate,
Yes.
does the spreading ridge then have to be like almost perfectly perpendicular to the faults?
I guess so. Interesting. Seems like a really simple question, but maybe it's a necessity for this.
Like a physics kind of thing.
Are you kind of, in other words, is it possible to have the orientation of that spreading ridge different and still have those strike slip faults?
Yeah, in that orientation.
I guess this is the simplest geometry, that it is not an accident that it's perpendicular.
Right.
And confirmed, I guess, with our magmas, once we get there.
Yeah.
We got the spreading ridge and we got all sorts of other evidence for that. Remember, we're bringing Silesia, and remember, we've got a slab window. Remember, all this is happening, but just eliminating the hot mantle, eliminating the magmas, just from this part of it, it seems like the simplest way to view it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Logan.
I was just wondering, I mean, is there other reason to like the orientation of those faults? I mean, because Silesia just decreed, does that have any effect on like the landscape there, or is that spreading ridge and that Kula plate just having that big of an impact that far inland?
Okay.
You're doing a nice job here, Logan, and I'm learning with you. Number one,
Which is why I wondered if it had.
this really is a 3-ring circus and more, and so I'm learning that if I just isolate one ring of the circus, maybe it's not the right thing to do. So you're kind of using 2 rings of the circus. You're saying, don't forget, we're bringing Silesia in.
And Silesia
Right, right.
at the same time.
So would we get? Well, that's interesting. So if we remove the spreading ridge, let's just play a game. If we remove the spreading ridge and we just have Silesia made by a hotspot, and then we accrete Silesia, would we still get those strike slip faults in that orientation, in that activity, without the spreading ridge? And maybe the answer is yes. Because now we're asking if the spreading ridge isn't there, it's like one big ocean plate with Siletzia in it. I guess we would need a northeast moving ocean plate to get that. Oh yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. So I'm going to think about that. It's kind of a game of like, if we have these four things going, Siletzia, spreading ridge, faults, sediment sources. If you remove one or two, and then kind of play with those active options, and then remove those, and then plug in. It's like you're tinkering with some sort of formula or something, Really fun. Thank you.
I'm wondering if that's all the evidence he has for that too.
As I understand it, yes, but well, it's in that paper, man. He's got everything with the kitchen sink in that paper. He's got magmas too. I don't mean to present Mike as just being a fault and sediment guy. So that's one of his. In fact, the conclusion of that paper, that last paragraph, I'll hit this on Tuesday. Again, maybe with attitude, I'm not sure. He basically says, look, this is I forget what he says. This is, can't remember his phrase, but it's like, we need all different kinds of evidence to solve this problem. You can't, he's saying basically between the lines, you can't just be a sedimentary person and figure this out. You can't just be a paleomag person and figure this out. You can't just be a magma person and figure it out. It's all that's got to work together, like multidisciplinary or something. And he's one of those guys that's doing all of it instead of just one or two. And that's one of the reasons I'm very impressed by him. You're all still here.
This
Yes.
is cool.
Thank you, Ryan.
We're still here, man.
Okay, I'm loving it too.
What I don't understand,
Yes.
right off the bat, is why does this? I mean, maybe you're going to get to this, and you kind of said you didn't.
Who knows?
But why does the fault, or why does the spreading ridge have to migrate south?
Yeah, I caught myself in the moment, not understanding why he needs the southward migrating triple junction. And maybe it's a magma story. Maybe there's some magmas. Or if we go back to, who was that? Oh, the resurrection guy.
Yeah, was that-
Spencer Houston from Houston thought he saw age trends of the near trench magmas, and that was magma evidence for the intersection of the triple junction. So maybe.
I don't think so. I didn't saw an email about it.
So do you need a southward migrating triple junction without magmas, or is it the magmas only that are telling the southward moving triple junction?
Because in my head, if you need the Kula plate moving north to get the faults to go
That's-
in the right lateral,
that's the
if you
point.
had everything moving south with the triple junction, and the Farallon plates going south as well.
Right.
You see the faults maybe going in the opposite direction.
Oh, you lost me there.
So if we've got the triple junction south of where the faults currently are, and the Kula plate moving northwest is what's causing the faults to move in that direction. If you had the triple junction up here, and then this plate's moving this direction, right?
Yep.
Wouldn't you see the opposite effect in those faults? So if you're moving from up the triple junction from the north to the south, I get that once it gets down here, you'd see this, but wouldn't you also find some other faults that are moving the opposite direction from when the Farallon plate is above all that? Does that make sense?
Are you saying that if this thing 60 million years ago was up here,
Yes.
wouldn't you have some strike slip faults with the opposite offset?
Yes, in addition to that.
And then as you
tie
drift
those-
south,
yeah.
wouldn't you like kill those left lateral faults and start some right lateral
Right.
faults? I don't know.
All
That's
right.
interesting. That's where we end it. I don't know.
Right on, man.
Let me think about it.
For sure.
You're very nimble mentally. I really like that about you. You're not only kind of hearing things, but processing and coming up with a decent thought in pretty quick order. Much
Well, I
faster
just-
mind than I have.
It's just the mechanical stuff, man. You
Oh
start
yeah,
thinking
yeah,
about,
yeah. That's the
if this is
mind of an
gonna-
auto
if this is what
mechanic.
You get to go to make that happen.
Right.
And then you put this in the opposite
Right.
direction. It's like, well, aren't you going to see?
Yeah.
something like that.
Oh, I like it, man. Yeah, you're troubleshooting, trying to get this engine running again.
When you started going with the coal thing, I'm like, oh, he's not gonna. I was
wish
trying to
you-
help you think of
I
something
wish you
better,
could
but
have seen could have seen Tim's face. Like, what are you doing?
Are we for the Leavenworth fault where you've got the
Fanglomers.
fanglomerates?
Yeah.
Are those is she dating the migration with zircons, or are those too close together, like time-wise, for zircons to really be effective at that?
I haven't read carefully yet, but she does have zircons in some airfall tufts or ash tufts that are in the Fanglomerate country to keep track of time. But I hear what you're asking, like how can you get a date on a
Well, especially
fan?
if it's all
It's
coming
just
from the same rock.
Correct. So she does have some zircon. She does have some kind of deposits that happened quickly, and she has high precision dates on those. But I am fuzzy right now on how she's using those tufts to keep track of time with this story.
Okay.
But I'm sure it's there.
Is the paper where she puts the dates? Do you have that on your website?
Not yet.
Okay.
Look for that email on Sunday night. Okay. Yep. Thank you.
So I was wondering about, so I understand it's going southwards, but
Right.
why does it change directions and start going north? Like,
So thank you, Luke. I don't know. You have an idea?
yeah, I was thinking that, like, because a lot of times with the divergent plate boundary, there's a transform fault connected, so maybe
Okay.
it, like, subducted a transform fault.
God, nice. I cut you off because I'm enthused. I cannot wrap my mind around that yet, but I'm so impressed that you came up with that thought. You know that these divergent boundaries are commonly offset by transform boundaries, and whether the offset's like this or like this, I'm not even sure. But that's a whole nother factor, that we're not plowing over a perfectly linear spreading ridge. It's offset by nature. And so what happens if you suddenly drift over something that's already been offset? You jump the triple junction position in a hurry. And I think you're at least 3 steps ahead of me right now on how that helps.
Because it could be, like, basically the same story, but then there's one of those transforms, which then puts his story right into the
Right.
because it, like, jumps below Washington.
Right.
Allows for the,
Well, late in the quarter, we're going to look at some tectonic models from Jeff Tepper, and he does have in 3 dimensions an offset triple junction, and therefore you tear. I mean, it's yeah. So you're ahead of me right now, and you keep going in that direction. I don't know if I'm brave enough to include that in our discussion.
I just was wondering.
Yeah, good, nice. Okay, I got to get to the home audience here. Thanks, guys. Yeah, Colton.
Sorry, side
That's
question.
all right, yeah.
Actually backtracking a few lectures. For the Tianaway basalt flow
Yeah.
thing, is it flood basalt, right?
Flood basalt.
So have you been up on Saddle Mountain and seen how they have that silicic layer underneath that kind of basalt glacial flower layer-ish looking thing?
Above Wenatchee? Saddle Rock? No.
Saddle Mountain,
Where's Saddle Mountain?
over by Mattawa, where they do the petrified wood.
Oh,
collecting
yeah,
and stuff.
yeah, those are Columbia River basalts.
That's Columbia River salt?
Yeah.
Okay, I was wondering because it's like you said silicic material involving
Correct.
the Tianaway flood basalt, and so I was wondering if that had anything to do with it because it's very weird.
I love what you're doing, but way too young.
It is?
That's
Okay.
all 16 million. That's the Ringgold Formation, which is younger yet.
Okay.
That's this Yellowstone asphalt tuff.
Okay.
It is weird over there, but way too young for us here.
Yeah, because Jim Landon was showing us those
Oh, yeah.
silicic material kits that they were mining in, so he was showing us those. So that's why I was curious.
If you're curious, there's a YouTube lecture called Super Volcanoes in the Pacific Northwest, and the speaker gets into all that stuff right at Saddle Mountains and showcases that story.
Okay, cool.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, that's a much longer time that you had to wait. Thank you for your patience. We still have over 600, so that speaks to your dedication. Thank you. These guys are still here talking about this. So it worked, at least in the sense that it got them thinking. Well, let's do some live Q&A. I'm guessing you'll want to ask pretty much the same kind of stuff these guys were asking. Ricky, from here on, I am calling it plate mechanics, coming from a mechanic here. Love it. Yes, Ryan is a auto mechanic who spent a few years in the shop and then said, there's got to be more to life than this. So he came back to school. But we've talked a lot about his auto mechanic years. Not to take anything away from fine auto mechanics, but for him, his brain was working beyond the details of the shop. Chris, is the original triple junction, triple rift, question mark, the Yellowstone hotspot? Well, probably, Chris, but I think most of you heard my discussion here, and I'm realizing more and more that as we continue to add to this list of things, and all of it happening simultaneously, I'm kind of like my circus thing now that I erased it. I mean, it is kind of this crazy, like you're spinning plates. I got Ed Sullivan on the brain or something. But I'm realizing that if we remove 2 or 3 or 4 major parts of this Eocene story and just kind of ignore it for a while, well, basically, if you got 8 things going on at the same time, hotspot, spreading ridge, strike slip faults, offset whatevers, near trench magmas, other kinds of magmas, breaking a plate, tearing a plate, how do you discuss it with all these things happening simultaneously? That's impossible for everybody, I assume. But if you just isolate a couple things like the Yellowstone hotspot and you, okay, I've got it, that's not that hard, and then you ignore everything else, then you're not doing the topic justice. So I guess in real time, I'm realizing that just isolating 3 or 4 of the problems and then trying to bring them back in it feels like you're like 1 step forward, 3 steps back kind of a thing. So I guess for today's question and answer, I guess I'll just say we can't think about magmas or the mantle plume or a couple other things right now, I guess, or the 4-arc Blue Mountain thing. And boy, man, it's invigorating. Let's say that. It's invigorating to learn all this and to have Erin and others helping in real time. There she is, Erin again. Hey, Erin. All right, I'm scrolling back, looking for some uppercase. Angus, I think the offset spreading ridge is a good idea. Thank you. We didn't come up with it here, of course. Kyle, would you please draw the Yellowstone hotspot for 50 to 35 million year time frame? We kind of did that already, Kyle, earlier in this class. Were you with us the first few sessions? The short way to say it is you have a mantle plume, the Yellowstone hotspot, underneath the subducting Farallon plate. And so it's being shielded. We don't have a good signature of that Yellowstone mantle plume, except for those Tillamook volcanics starting 42. Cindy says, the students are smart. We are glad to wait. Hey, Logan, you're smart. Did you know that?
You might be the first person to tell me that.
Logan says, I might be the first person to tell him that in a while. Well, Cindy thinks you're smart, and so do I. Pat, is the Leavenworth fault under the CRBs part of the Olympic Wallowa lineament? Oh, God, Pat. Talk about ignoring things. There is a beautiful lineament noticed for the first time in the mid-1940s by Edwin Rise. Goes from the Strait of Juan de Fuca and the Olympic Mountains all the way down to the Wallowa Mountains in eastern Oregon. I've never taught about the owl as it's known because nobody can agree on it. So thanks, Pat, but I'm going to stay away from that. Probably part of the story somehow, but people can't even decide if the Olympic Wallowa lineament has a strike slip offset on it or not. Geophysicists say yes. Guys like Steve Rydell say no, there's feeder dikes going right across it. It's not offset. David, where was the else? Okay, so I am going to just kind of be proactive here. I'm going to ignore, thank you for your questions about the Yellowstone hotspot, but we're just, you heard my rationale. I don't want to include that today. Spinning plates, not bad. So maybe this is going to be an unsatisfying. I'm down to live. Try your question again if I didn't see it before. Can't have the to have the offset to do away with Kula. No, have to do. If I got what you asked correctly, when these strike slip faults stop making earthquakes, in other words, when these strike slip faults stop being active, that's a telltale sign that the Kula is no longer offshore. I'm pretty confident of that connection. And it's one of the main reasons we know the Kula had to be here. Remember, the Kula is totally gone, except for just a sliver up by the Aleutians. This thing is totally gone. There's no magnetic anomalies on the ocean floor to use to reconstruct plates. It's just gone. So this is, if nothing else, a lesson in how you can build a case for an ocean plate that used to exist at a certain time using evidence on shore. Not volcanoes, but activity on strike slip faults like the Leavenworth Fault, our topic today. This is fun. I didn't anticipate this. That's a weird thing to say. This one was actually enjoyable. Okay, you guys are all over the place here. I got to be discerning, I guess, on what I address. I love the enthusiasm. But Ian, how does accrete with the Kula plate moving in that direction at 50 million years? Don't get your question, but I'll try to reinforce again. I was kind of rushed at the end there, but well, here's a whole nother thing. I'm ignoring the resurrection. Remember, that was a whole big deal. Like, is this really the Kula plate or is this the resurrection plate? Remember, this is, if you're Spencer Fuston from Houston and that group, you like another spreading ridge up in Alaska, remember? And then this is not the Kula, but it's the resurrection. Even Karin Siglock group liked the Orcas plate as opposed to the Kula. So there's a whole nother deal. But I'm not sure I got your question, sir, but the general concept is you're going to have, I mean, neither of these ocean plates are coming at North America head on. We can agree. So this is oblique subduction and oblique going away. And so the oblique subduction, you can make a case for some volcanic arc and, classic subduction type stuff. Logan.
This is where my question.
This is Logan coming in real time.
Yes, the spreading rates.
The spreading rates.
Is the spreading rate of the subduction and the Kula from the Farallon plate the same rate since they're both coming from spreading ridges?
We can assume the spreading rate is the spreading rate is one thing, and so both of these plates are moving the same velocity.
And subducting at the same.
And subducting at the same rate, I guess we cannot assume that because this is subducting beneath. Well, it's still subducting beneath the North American plate, but it's a large plate that probably has different vectors depending on where you are in this huge rigid plate. That's an important part of your thought process here? Like this might be moving faster or slower than this? Is that what you're thinking?
No, my thinking was if like,
this is Logan, the smart guy, remember? Yeah.
So I was thinking of the vectors, and if the spreading ridge vector was a lot greater than the rate of subduction, that maybe that Kula plate spreading so much faster would increase like either the size of the strike slip faulting up there. So
I
if
see.
this has a greater velocity, they'd be bigger faults, or if they didn't, they'd be smaller faults.
You're thinking if this arrow wasn't exactly going to Alaska, but was coming at Washington, maybe it's subducting faster than this stuff might be subducting?
If that arrow wasn't as big and it was a lower magnitude fault,
Yeah.
we thought those
Yeah.
spreading, or those strike slip faults would be smaller.
You might be on it, but I can't see it. Wow. This is a first. Live Q&A from around the world, and a kid pops up and starts asking a question in real time. Love it.
The home viewers have a lot better questions. I learned that from the chat yesterday.
Logan is now buttering you all up, and he's saying the home viewers have much better questions than I do. This is getting awfully saccharine here. Let's get back to some sarcasm. Nick, so many faults. How many unrelated fault events took place? How many unrelated fault events took place? Oh boy, unrelated faults. I don't know how to answer that. Fault and fault activity is a direct result of a particular arrangement of active tectonic plates. And we know tectonic plates are always moving. So if we're on this map between 60 and 40, if there's a fault, it's active in response to this geometry. I don't know how else to answer that. I'm still down to live because I've lost track of where I am. Seems like you guys are into it, so thanks for that. Steve, is there any evidence for strike slip faults caused by southward moving Farallon plate? That's kind of Logan country now. Or Ryan, the mechanic, was saying, why wouldn't you have some strike slip faults down here that have left lateral? I'll draw some for you, even though I don't think they exist. Here's oblique subduction of the Farallon plate. Why can't we have this? Or do we have that? These are right lateral, these are left lateral. Do we have those? I mean, if you look at a highway map of Washington, or just some kind of raised relief map of Washington, it's not an accident all these valleys are northwest, southeast. Have you ever noticed that? How do you get from Ellensburg to Seattle? You go over Snoqualmie Pass. You follow one of these northwest, southeast trending valleys. Stevens, North Cross Highway, etc. I mean, it's all a legacy, really. We're still living in the aftermath of Seleucia's accretion, in the sense of our general orientation of our mountain valleys, at least in Washington. Tom's going crazy with his red question marks. Nick, with the North American craton, are we looking at that being an original caldera, or what is now the caldera responsible for Hawaii? Tom, I'm not sure you've been with us a whole lot in this class and other classes. We confine the word caldera to a supervolcano where you have high silica magma and a mantle plume source. And most of the craton does not have that signature, just where the Yellowstone mantle plume is today in the craton. So I think you might be taking a few of those terms and going a little further than we can see with our use of some of those terms. Thank you for being here. Now knock it off with your red question marks. I'm scrolling back. Who is Ed Sullivan? Oh my God. Google Beatles 1964. That'll get you. Or 1963. Bones B. How does the Straight Creek Fault moving interact with the moving of the Leavenworth Fault? Thank you. I had that thought this morning. I'm drawing our strike slip faults with our right lateral offset, including the Leavenworth and the Eniat and the Ross Lake and others. But the Straight Creek is not northwest, southeast, it's north-south. And it appears, I don't know, Aaron, you still with us? Or Mike watching after the fact? Can we, thank you for the question, Bonnie, was it? Just using 101 cross-cutting relations, can we say the Straight Creek Fault is younger than the Leavenworth Fault and all the rest of these? Simply because it appears to offset them? If true, aren't we needing to start the formation of Leavenworth Fault, Entiat Fault earlier than the Straight Creek? Like I thought Mike's paper and I thought our main message is that everybody's kind of showing up at the same time 50 million years ago. But now if we're down to splitting hairs, if we're off, well, I don't know, I guess we aren't offsetting, are we? Is this the Leavenworth? Oh, see, I don't even have the Leavenworth Fault on here. That's how much I didn't care about the Leavenworth Fault when I made this last fall. I don't even have the Leavenworth Fault on here. But let's just take the Entiat Fault. Why does the Entiat Fault abruptly stop at the Straight Creek? Doesn't that mean that the Leavenworth, the Entiat Fault is older than the Straight Creek Fault? Great question. I don't know the answer. Ooh, baby, there's a lot of learning for me to do. It's Bones. Sorry, thank you, Bones, for the question. Ricky, Siletzia was carried on the Farallon at 50, correct? Not necessarily. Depends on what map you look at. We will continue to favor, because these science papers favor, Siletzia straddling the spreading ridge, and therefore half Farallon, half Kula. Or if you're so inclined, half Farallon, half Resurrection. Well, now there's an Ed Sullivan breakout discussion. Okay. I don't know where I am in the questions here. Let me go back down to live. A few more. It's late, isn't it? Oh, Patrick's got to go. A toast to you. Patrick wants to do a toast. Let me do one more, Patrick, and then we'll... Oh, now we're talking about dogs. Okay, let's finish with one here. Ian, how does the Kula subduct moving in that direction when Siletzia accretes? That's how we'll finish. Tried to make this point. I assume you've been with us, Ian and others. Maybe you're kind of jumping in now as opposed to being with us since March. But in this class, we kind of carefully laid out the building of Siletzia, and maybe we just haven't hit it hard enough yet, but there's mounting evidence that Siletzia was straddling a spreading ridge. And therefore, to just have the Farallon plate carrying Siletzia to North America is not totally the way we view it anymore. I know there's even some animations, some excellent Jenda Johnson animations that show exactly that. Big old chocolate gumdrop, Siletzia, it's on the Farallon plate, it's being brought in. But if you've been with us for many, many weeks, we're realizing more and more that it's not a simple case of making something like Siletzia and bringing it to North America. It's maybe a little bit of movement of Siletzia, but it's a lot of southwesterly drift of North America over mostly a spreading ridge story, as opposed to one big ocean plate coming at us. So if you've been with us since day one and you're still asking that question, then I guess it won't crystallize for you until we talk about magmas a little bit more. But it's my teaching choice to hold off. Still some Ed Sullivan stuff. Okay, we're definitely done. So let me find my mug half a room away and we will toast you. A toast to you. Did you get a field notebook as a gift?
Yes.
Okay, good. Logan's still in here working on his laptop. This is the second lecture in a row where I've mistakenly left my mug on the other side of the room. Don't understand. I continue to be thrilled that we have so many of you. You're so loyal. You're here almost every time, and I'm so grateful to you for that. It wouldn't be nearly as much fun if we didn't have a big crowd home there. Here's to you for being regular participants in this Geology 351 class. Things appear to be turning towards the good here in the Pacific Northwest. The Oregon governor just announced some goals to open up completely. I think our governor here in Washington just announced something earlier today. So hoping we can keep in that direction and open us up more and more in the coming weeks and months. Here's to that all over the world. If you're still locked down in your part of the world and still battling all sorts of sensations related to that lockdown, we're all feeling for you, and we're all dealing with this in different forms. But if you're still totally locked down, we're thinking about you. Hang in there. Things will get better. I'm going to watch this replay tonight, and then I'm probably going to take a break for a couple of days and recharge my batteries. And then probably late this week, I'll start reading Erin's new scientific paper and her master's thesis that she sent me on the chumstick. So all sorts of details from the chumstick formation related to this story coming on Tuesday and Thursday of next week. So until then, I say thank you for watching. I love you, and we'll see you on Tuesday. And look for a field video called Ingalls Creek, posted this weekend. Goodbye. Damn it, I wanted to end the